on the Adidas shot, or are you gonna start?
Get ready. It's going. Go here.
Give me a hand signals.
Sorry, honey, I'm just kind of busy right now. I'll call you back. I know the baby's screaming. It's okay. Just give him Tylenol.
You're actually live, but hang on. Then, there we go. Okay.
Thank you for joining us from around the world, and welcome to the 49er FX and Nacra 17 2017 European Championship. I'm Alan Block, your host this week, and all of our morning shows are brought to you this week by Adidas Sailing, and you can actually head over to Adidas Sailing from the link on the 49er or the Nacra17.org web pages. Right at the top of the screen will take you to that Adidas store. You can buy some amazing technical gear, whether it's these polo shirts or those awesome trap shoes that half the fleet seems to be wearing. Some of the stuff that Adidas does that's just phenomenal. Go and check out. You can even put your own team logos on that gear. Head over to that link from the Nacra 17 and 49er websites. And this morning we're going to talk to a few interesting folks. One of the most interesting to me here, right alongside next to me. But just a little heads up on our schedule for the week. We're going to have morning shows with analysis, with interviews like this one coming up all week long at 11 o'clock, maybe earlier when the finals start. And that'll be right here on Facebook Live. We're also going to have fully live coverage, including onboard video, drone video, tracking, and commentary for you starting on Wednesday, going Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for the finals. So it should be a really exciting week. And I'm very excited to see this old familiar face back in the room. And I say old, and I'm dating myself because I think you're almost exactly a month younger than me. Chris Rast, welcome to the morning show here, 45 years old.
Good morning, Mr. Clean.
It's good to see you. You look great. You look fit. You look good out on the water practicing.
It must be because I'm sailing the 49er, right?
Yeah, I mean,
keeps you young.
You always come back to it, don't you?
Well, you know, if you're looking for top-notch racing in one of the most exciting classes in the world, then it's got to be the 49er. So, you know, I think you just don't have to be afraid to challenge yourself and get back into it. And, you know, maybe, who knows, maybe you can teach one of those young guns a trick or two as well.
Well, and many people don't know that actually of everyone here in the entire fleet, you're the senior statesman. You've been in this fleet the longest, I think, since 98, is that right?
No, 1997. We did
97.
Actually, my crew, Bruno and I, we actually did the first Worlds ever in Mounts Bay, Perth. In 1997. It was epic. We had no clue on how to sail the boat.
And there's no breeze in Perth or anything.
No, not at all. Chris Nicholson and Dan Phillips, they just sailed circles around us all day long. On the day off, they actually went out and just did figure eights and just made everybody, like, you know, they really rubbed it in on everybody. So.
Did anyone, and I so much of this is learning for me because I'm fairly, and I've been following the racing for some time, but I'm fairly new to the ins and outs of it. Yep. But did anyone back in those early days realize what a groundbreaking boat this would become? Like that it would end up being the channel to the America's Cup. That all these guys would go into foilers and cats and the biggest boats in the world, straight, you know, Volvo 70s, whatever, straight out of this fleet. Did anyone know?
Yeah, I think there were two parts to your question. The first part was I think people realized quickly that it was going to be an amazing class from the get-go. ISAF at that time was looking for some exciting class, and Julian Bethwaite had the foresight to come up with a really beautiful boat that provided a lot of, you know, spectating aspects to it that we have now. The second part of the question, you know, did we see this? Did we know that this was already going to be a stepping stone for further, you know, high-level campaigns such as the America's Cup or the Volvo? No. I think after a couple of years, people started figuring out, like, wow, these guys really know how to push the boats, and they got comfortable at sailing the boats at the limits. And I think that's then what got these people into the Volvo, I think, initially, where, you know, you had Eker get onto a Volvo and
just being great drivers.
Just being great drivers, and the skipper's having to like slow them down, like dude, like you're about to break the boat, and he's like, no, faster, So that did show up quickly, and and that comes also with the decision making process. The boats are so fast that the decision making process has to be snap, 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 and that's what's happening in America's Cup and in the Moth and similar classes like that.
So let's talk about your journey a little bit. One of the fascinations for people who watch Olympic sailing and sort of delve into it every few years is what is it that motivates everybody? The nationalism's great, fighting for your country. Even someone who has represented two different countries now, being a dual citizen or maybe even three citizens. I don't know.
Dual Swiss and
American. But what is it like when you see these kids, or for someone that at 45 years old? What is it that keeps bringing you back? Like, what's the one strongest goal that you're looking for, and why is it so compelling?
Again, there are two parts to your question. For me, at least, I am a bit older than the rest of the fleet. For me, the games that the last game I sailed was in 2008 with Tim Wadlow, and just to be honest, I just feel like we fell short of our goal. We went into that regatta with clear hopes for a medal. We had set ourselves up. We had shown the results, and unfortunately, we fell short of it. We finished 6th overall. So there's still a little bit of unfinished business for me. Number one. Number two, as complicated as Olympic sailing is now these days, you have all the logistics. You have all the equipment issues. You have the racing. You have the fundraising and all these things. But in the end, it's actually it sounds weird, but it's actually a very simple life, which is the beauty of it, because there's a very clear goal, which is to excel at the Olympic Games. And there's a very clear focus on that. And you need to do whatever it takes in order to put yourself in that position that once the games start, you got a good shot at a medal. So in that sense, it's actually pretty simple. There's not a lot of clutter around it. Yes, you got to work through all the issues and all the details, but the goal is very clear. And that's the beauty of Olympic sailing. I think that's one of the things that the kids nowadays really like. They actually have something they can really focus on and aren't always being distracted by all these different things that we have going on.
So it's the purity of it.
It is. It's very pure. To a certain extent, it's very pure.
Now, for someone who, unlike a lot of these kids, they're going to live out of the backseat of their vans, and they can sort of afford to live that way because they're young and they don't care and they don't have other pressures. You're one of the most in-demand, high-performance sailors out there, top professional sailor. You just came back from a world championship in the Marston 32. But whether it's GCs or decisions you've been running and crewing on some of the hottest boats in the world for a long time now.
Yep.
You've got a beautiful wife, a kid, and one on the way.
Absolutely.
You have a complicated life yourself. So this is a different kind of sacrifice. How can you keep all that up in the air and still put in the time and the effort you need to for this kind of endeavor?
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a balance act for sure. There's no question about that. At the same time, over the last couple of years, Danny and I, my wife and I, we've always made a point of, doing the professional sailing that we're doing that kind of pays for the bills, but we also do our personal sailing. And as you know, I was pretty active in the Moth. We saw each other last time in 2015 at some amazing worlds in Sorrento. With a great fleet there too.
You also picked up a Melgus 24 World Championship in the interim.
Yeah, and that
what
too.
You've been looking for 10 years or more.
Yeah, and and the Melgus was a different personal endeavor that we did too. And so our sponsorship with our last sponsor EFG came to an end, and that kind of put the brakes on the Melgus campaign. So we looked around, looked like, hey, what else could we do that will allow us to keep on pushing ourselves from a sailing aspect, from from a business development point too. It's interesting to be in the 49er. There's a lot of good sailors out there, and I think you get recognized if you do well in the 49er. So we kind of saw the 49ers as a potential stepping stone for further endeavors. And that said, it all kind of came together when I spoke with Charlie McKee at the end of last year in regards to getting into the 49er.
The former U.S. sailing team head coach.
Yep. Yeah, and he said, Trevor Bird's out there, he's a great crew. And I'm like, yeah, I remember Trevor. He sailed with Brad Funk. They were...
Sailed with 2 different teams in the last cycle.
He did, yeah, with I think Ryan something and Brad, and they had a really good shot at winning their trials and going to Rio, and unfortunately it just kind of fell apart a bit. And Trevor's, he also feels like there's some unfinished business out there, so we've teamed up for this year, and we're giving it a good shot, and we'll see how the cards fall. Right at the end of the season, we got this regatta, we got the Europeans. We're going to go up to Aarhus, the test event, and then the Worlds in Pardo. So we have a pretty condensed schedule right now, and we're hopefully at the end of it we'll come out on top.
At the America's Cup, where a 24-year-old 49er multi-world champion and gold medalist took it, right? Who's in second at the Moth Worlds right now.
Yeah, he's
on
climbing
a
the
brand
ladder.
new boat out of the box. Anyways, there was a lot made in that final matchup between the age difference between Jimmy at 39 or whatever, and he is 38 years old, and Pete at 25. And how, as time goes on, your reaction time's slow, but at the same time, Keiko Bruni at 44 is sitting in 11th or 10th in Garda at the Moth Worlds. And I'm wondering, asking you, because you're a pretty straight shooter, does your
on a spot here.
At 45, do you still have the reaction time to be able to compete with the very best 25-year-olds in this boat that is so razor's edge fine? You know what I mean?
Well, I can only really speak for myself there. I don't really consider myself a 45-year-old. You can ask my wife about that.
I understand. My wife thinks I'm 18 or 16 maybe some days.
But it really comes down to what kind of sailing you've put yourself through over the last couple of years. And I've really made a point out of sailing the Moth. And I think the Moth is probably the most, quickest, fast-thinking boat out there.
Sure, no question.
I mean, if you look at those crosses at the starting line around the Moth, there's really nothing that really compares to it. So I felt pretty good in the Moth, and I really liked it. And, there's actually an analogy that I make from Moth sailing to other sports. And, the Nike Moto, I know that Adidas is our sponsor, but we're going to let this one slide. The Nike Moto, I'm not sure if it still is, but the mantra was just do it, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same in the Moth. Like, once you start thinking about something, it's already too late. So it's literally just do it. Whatever comes, you just got to be in the flow. And the 49ers is very similar to that extent too. As you've got boats approaching, yes, of course you have a playbook in your mind. Okay, well, scenario A, this, scenario B, this, C. But in the end, a little change here, there, other skipper, having a bad tack or something, boom, new opportunity, slide in. So I think I kind of went through that learning curve with all the 49er sailing that I've done and in the Moth. And so I feel still pretty quick in my mind, so not too...
I'm anxious to see how you go for sure. And Trevor's always been someone fun to watch. I mean, he's...
Great crew.
If it wasn't for Brad's injury, Brad getting injured, I think they would have probably made the trials and taken the trials and done well. But the U.S. team...
And don't count Brad out. He's...
For sure,
he's gonna keep on sailing. He's a great sailor, so...
But the U.S. team over the past couple cycles has had its issues, had a lot of trouble getting medals, and the skiff has been one of the poorest performers really of all.
Which is a shame.
It is.
We medaled in 2000, with Charlie and Jonathan. In 2004, we had Tim and Pete. They finished 5th. 2008, it was Tim and myself. We finished 6th. 2012 was Eric and Trevor Moore, and they slid down. They also were kind of punished with some medical issues at that stage. In 2016, we just kind of been on the downfall here, which really isn't necessary because we have the knowledge, we have the potential. But, and Malcolm Page is going to tell you a lot about this. He's going to say there's no consistent program. There's nothing that allows teams to feed into all the work that has done prior to them. And that is really Malcolm Page's, the new U.S. Olympic Director's job, is now to put some kind of system in place that will allow future generations of skiff sailors and other Olympic sailors to really feed into all the experience that we've had over the last quads.
Great. Well, look, I thank you so much for taking the time out of your setup. You
Absolutely.
got a couple of hours before you got to go out there on the water.
Yeah, are the ladies racing? Are they at it right
I
now?
don't know. I had to close all the windows to keep the light out. But yeah, and it looks like a nice day out there. It looks
Should
like
be good.
beautiful keel weather.
It's standard keel weather. It's already rained once or twice, so it's all good. Hopefully it won't rain anymore. But it's definitely up north in summertime. You got to be ready for anything. But luckily, I think we're going to get off to a good start today with some decent breeze.
Great. All right. Thank you so much, Chris
Right.
Rast, along with Trevor Bird, the
You're
U.S. One of the top U.S. teams here. And we're going to bring in next the U.S. class the 49er and 49er FX and Nacra 17 class administrator, Ben Remocker. And
Hi, everyone.
how you doing, brother?
So good to see Chris, my old training partner from 08 days.
He's amazing. I was surprised to see him here because I know that he's a month younger, or just literally a month younger than me. We've talked about it over the years, and it's just awesome to see him excited and having fun, and here with an exciting, fairly young crew who's got a great story himself. And I'm anxious to see America come back into this, man.
What he didn't say was he and Tim had a 3-win day at the Olympics.
Really?
Day 3 of the Olympics, they won all 3 races.
Wow.
Put themselves back in the fight.
Wow.
And they dug themselves a bit of a hole in days 1 and 2.
Was it a
They were
weather
right
thing,
there.
or is it just sort of some people have good days and some people have bad days?
You'd have to ask them.
Obviously,
But,
obviously, Chris.
But I know on day 1 we rolled them on a downwind, and we were never good light air sailors. So there was something off those first couple days. They had a shot at a medal in the medal race. Everyone remembers the legendary medal race from that Qingdao Olympics chaos. They ended up
Total
having,
chaos, total carnage, right?
having some parts of their jib feeder break, and they had to leave their jib sheet around their spinnaker sock to get it to work for the race, and still almost got it done. But yeah, they were disappointed. They were right in the hunt, and he's still chasing.
You know what? I honestly, like, just to see a guy at 45 in this fleet it's refreshing to other 40-something-year-old. I mean, honestly, to see Keiko doing so well in the Moth, like, it's
How about
pretty
Santi,
cool.
right?
How about
Inspiration for
Santi?
us all.
How about that? 56 takes a gold medal in the most dynamic boat in the games. It's one of the reasons I'm so excited to be here with you, Ben, is that something about there's something about this fleet, especially the 49, the 49 FX, the Nacras, these 3 fleets that you guys have pulled together here, that there's always it's always a fighter's chance. It seems like there's always like these exceptional, unusual stories that come out because of the skill level required, maybe because of the athleticism required, being so much higher than in some of the other fleets. But to have the story about Santi, and meanwhile, we have Santi's two sons here, right?
Absolutely.
Racing in the 49.
Yeah, the Lang brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were top 10 at the games, and got to go hug their dad winning a gold medal. You got to bet they were motivated to keep on going. And then what's different about the scene now, we brought these 3 classes together, is probably the connections to the pro circuits, the Volvo and the America's Cup, like Chris was just talking to. In the 2012 quad, we had Iker and Chabi going around the world and stepping off, and then they won the test event in 2010, and then they went around the world again, and everyone's like, are they going to come in and take it? Iker was such a legend when he was dominating 49er.
Yeah.
And I think that second time around the world really did in their legs a little bit, and everyone else was sailing well, and obviously by then
It's hard.
Nathan Outteridge was the king.
Exactly. But
And,
as Chris said, it's really hard to split your focus, and Burling was able to do it. Okay, and Nathan was able to do it the last time round, but it wasn't a huge conflict because of the way that the timing set up.
Nathan had a big conflict. Nathan
Yeah.
was the sailing director. You could see it on his face. He had work all night while he was at regattas, very limited time. Peter was not, he wasn't the skipper. He was the helmsman, and obviously he put in his time, but he definitely made the 49er first, and I think it showed ultimately on the race course. Well, clearly he won every regatta, and then really dedicated to the America's Cup helmsman job completely after, and seemed to be the formula that worked. Yeah. But the reason we're talking about these guys is because they're not here right now.
Right.
So for the first time in a long time at the 2017 Europeans, we really don't know who's going to win.
And that's also really exciting, and not just because this is the B fleet. It ain't the B fleet at all. Some of these same sailors that we've got here right now are going off on the Volvo Ocean Race in a few months' time as well.
That's right.
So including some of the women on the FX and on the Nacra. So That's amazing stories in itself. Honestly, there's so many stories to tell in this fleet. But just so you understand the format, over the next 6 days, we've got 3 days of, or 4 days of qualifying?
3 days of qualifying.
Qualifying.
And then after qualifying, we'll have the live broadcasts of the Gold Fleet racing, including the final day, theater-style medal races.
So 3 days qualifying, 2 days of fleet, gold, silver fleet racing,
That's
and then
right.
1 day of stadium sailing finals, correct? Okay. So today we've got out on the water already, we've got the 49er FXs and Nacra 17s.
Yeah.
And then the 49er fleet, which is the biggest fleet, is running this afternoon.
That's right.
Okay. So what I wanted to do with you for just a little minute, because we got World Sailing President Kim Andersen popping in here in about 8 minutes, is to do a little bit of a preview of the fleet, because we know we don't have Burling, we don't have Outeridge. These guys are maybe they'll be back in the class, maybe not, but they're doing their thing right now. We don't have some of the medalists in the
Yeah, we
class.
don't. Martine is off practicing for Volvo. Alex and Molly are at home, and
Santi's
Chagoyan.
Santi's down in the Santi Lang is down in
He's
the
just training.
in Lake Garda.
He's just training. He's just getting some more time in before
Right.
he races. But the championship here is therefore really open and really interesting, and we're going to go through some of the sailors here that we think have a shot. For sure, not an exclusive list.
So let's have a look here. First with the 49ers here.
Yeah. So this is Diego Button and Iago Mara.
Yeah, and now Diego is the nephew, I think, of Marcelino Botin, a really famous high performance boat designer as well. So he's got heritage and skill.
Heritage and skill, and they were top 10 at the last quad. Came in, I think, in 2013, and pretty young guys, and they actually didn't start sailing together. They teamed up together maybe halfway through the quad, and Iago's a real fit guy. Diego's lighter build, so he needed a little more muscle, and they've really done well since they teamed up.
Yeah.
And very consistent. I would bank them in for a top 10, and if they sail in an inspired way, they could be on the podium.
And Diego's told me a while ago how much he looked up to. I remember when he was sailing with Iker in the M32 on the World Match Racing Tour. Actually, he told me how much he's been mentored by Iker and Xavi back in the day, and I think that comes through as well. There's that gold medal heritage in Spain in the skiff, and not much else.
He's an easy guy to speak with and work with, and I'm sure he's soaking up lots of that Spanish knowledge.
And next up,
the Brits, James Peters and Finn Starrett. So James Peters was a 2012 junior world champion and a 29er world champion, and they're also teamed up probably 2 years ago. And this year they've really stepped it up. They trained all the way through the winter. They didn't make the games last time, but they kept on pressing, and they've won. This is a photo from them at the. I don't know. It might be they won both here, and they won the Sailing World Cup final in Santander.
Yeah.
So can't tell. That's the Santander photo. But you can tell, I think they're ranked top 3 right now.
and they might be the youngest contender really here as well.
Yeah, they're about the same age as Diego
Right.
and Iago, but Finn's a tiny bit older, I think, than James, but very close. And they've been working really hard this winter. And like I said, they won the last championship, so we'll see what they can do this week. There's a lot of pressure on them. I don't know if there's a lot of pressure on them, but there's a lot of expectation on them. As James was a 2-time, younger age world champion, I'm sure the British system's looking for him to move into the senior ranks. And
Before we actually go on, you talk about pressure. Obviously, we know what the pressure's like when you get later on in the quad, when selections are coming close and funding becomes really crucial. And but at an event like this, which is really the first major ranking event after the Olympics, is the pressure on now as well, or is this really kind of a nice low pressure feeling out process?
No, it's depending on the squad. Like we just talked about, Santi didn't even feel the need to come. He can go and train.
Same with Bora.
Same with Bora. In a squad-based system, and for Europeans in Europe, they treat the Europeans, as a funding exercise with their with their national bodies. So, this is not a make or break regatta. But by the same token, James and Finn they've been through a whole cycle now of Worlds and Europeans, and I don't think they've ever achieved the results they really wanted. They've had some top 10s, but nothing sort of top 5 or on the podium. And it's not to say that this one needs to be the one, but they want to start being able to tell their funding bodies and their team selectors that they should be under consideration, because the guys who went to the games last time, they're coming back.
Yeah.
And you got to beat those guys on a consistent basis to take the spot. So
Teams like the UK that have a large skiff contingent, teams like Australia that have a large Nacra contingent or a skiff contingent as well. Teams like the French with five Nacras here, 4 Nacras here. Do those teams have more pressure because of that battle, or is it more?
Every national team set up differently. You know, the Danes, we'll talk about them, I'm sure, later in the week. Super collaborative. They've been taught to be collaborative since they were teenagers or younger.
Everyone's equal in Scandinavia.
Yeah. And, you know, for the British system, there will probably be a time that the cut comes. It won't be this year, it'll be next year. But, you know, Nick Asher, 2012 silver medalist, tried to make the switch. He was actually progressing really well.
From crew to skipper.
Well, no, he and Stu both switched over. And by halfway through the quad, you know, he was on a trajectory, but it just wasn't fast enough. And they stopped his funding, and you know, he's at the Moth Worlds right now, still having fun, and he kind of threatened to come back, but it's a tough thing to get back into. So, you know, those decisions are the ones that really impact these sailors' lives. They rely on that funding to live and sail and get to achieve their ultimate potential.
Yeah, they can't all be going off and getting good day rates like Rast can. Next up, we have got
Lukas Kolodinsky and Pavel Januszewski.
This is the Poles.
They
are rock stars.
Yeah, these could be the best sailors in the world you've never heard of. These guys are always in the top 5, but always off the podium because of guys like Burling and Outeridge.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like it's their time. They've got 2 quads under their belt as a team. They have great training partners, and they've continued to have great training partners and coaches. And for whatever reason, I just think it's their time. I think they were 4th at last year's Europeans.
Not far from here either, Poland. It's almost
home waters. Home regatta. The same body of water. They've got there's an FX team now in Poland. Poland's got a really good sailing team.
And they've had one of the best star sailors in the world for a long time. They've got,
windsurfers. They've got laser sailors. So these guys have been sort of knocking on the door, and I feel like it's their time.
Good pick. I like that. And then finally, we've got it looks like an Irish team here.
No, we got Dylan Fletcher and.
That's more Brits. Isn't it?
More Brits. Yep. Dylan went to the games last time and teamed up with his John Pink's crew Stu. After that, felt it was time for a change. And these guys are hungry. They trained harder than anyone this winter, and probably from the highest spot of anyone that's at this regatta. So. And
now Fletcher's. As skipper, he's won a number of World Cups. Hasn't he a World Championship?
He's certainly got a number of medals. He won a bronze at the 2016 Worlds, and was fighting for a medal in the medal race. And if you remember, he capsized at the Leeward Mark. I shouldn't laugh, but I'm sure he regrets it. We were certainly wondering what was up with that. You know, he's a guy who sails on the edge. If there's an advantage to be found, he wants it. So he's winning the pin if it's favored. He's just really ambitious for his sailing, and in Stu, he's got a guy who's a silver medalist from the 2012 Olympics in the 470, and obviously a strong lad, you can see from the photo, but steady, really good sailor. I think Dylan's a little bit bitter. He's not at the Moth Worlds right now, but he's serious. He gave up on that. Great moth sailor. So we'll see what they can do.
Let's check
That's
it
the
out.
lineup.
Let's look at the FX then, and next up, and again, very wide open in the FX right now, and that's wonderful. You've got the biggest fleet ever of FXs at a Europeans, really at any event, I think, right? Biggest
This
ever?
is the biggest FX fleet we've ever had. 65 boats entered. The previous high was 53, so the boat's coming into its own. And
now, real quickly, just to sort of dispel, we've had some questions about this, but the FX is for the Olympics is an all-female boat, but you actually have some mixed teams and some men's youth teams here. Can you just explain real quick what that's about?
So the FX has got 2 purposes in life, if you will. It's the ultimate test for women skiff sailors, and that's why it's in the Olympics. And it's also a transition class for youth men or mixed teams.
Sort of like what the 29er used to do.
No, well, the 29er is the youth class, but it was just too big a leap from the 420 or the laser radial or the 29er to get into a 49er comfortably. I mean, people did it all the time, but it wasn't such an easy transition, so much power. So now typically teams spend a year in the FX, even if they are heavy enough, or probably they're not heavy enough, but they can learn the boat handling. It's all identical. Everything's the same, except you got a lot more forgiveness in the rig. Basically you're just taking out the top meter of sail, so guys can get their boat handling in in a way that keeps them sailing more than swimming.
Great. All right. So who are we looking at here? We'll go through these picks for the FX and the Nacra real quick so we can get to Kim and then get this wrapped up and get on the water.
This is Vicky and Annika, German Olympic sailors from 2016. They won here this year. They've been training a lot, maybe not as hard as they've ever trained, but they've been training a lot, and they've been an undersized team, but they're making it work this season. So I think they're English out, home waters, they live here.
Yeah, they probably know Kiel pretty well.
Absolutely.
Next up,
we've got our bronze medalists.
our Danish medalists.
That's right, yeah. So Jenna Hansen and Katja Iversen. Jenna was just announced last week as a participant in the Volvo Ocean Race. She's super excited about that.
Sailing with Charlie Enright, I think, in the 11th hour racing program.
That's right. And the two of them are just back in the game. 2 weeks of training, obviously from a very high level. So we don't really know what they're going to be able to deliver. I talked to them yesterday. They're rusty, but obviously with lots of tools in their belt. So
I think a lot of people are in the same position. So.
That's right. They'll be in it with a shout.
And top pick here?
Yeah. Charlotte Dobson, and with her new crew, Saskia Tidy, from previously raced for Ireland. Her skipper retired, and she didn't think that there was, the other skippers that were coming up were too young really to match her ambitions for winning this quad. So she has dual nationality, or maybe she's Northern Ireland, and therefore she can sail for GBR. Made the switch under no promises, but found a teammate in Charlotte, and it seems to be working out well. They won the Sailing World Cup final. I think that's them in the yellow jerseys in that picture. And definitely in with a shout this week. They've been training hard all winter as well.
I have my little shout out, which is, of course, my American friends. I've been following Steph Roble and Maggie Shea's careers for, honestly, since Maggie was a little thing, and so is Steph. Now they're buff and shredded, and Maggie looks like she could bench press a house. And I know Steph, she's a world champion. She's a brilliant sailor, and I again, obviously I'm a homer. I want to see the North Americans do well here. But to see Rast and Bird and then see Steph and Maggie as well looking good, I hope to see them do well. We'll see. I think the thing about the FX that's most interesting to me is still how steep the learning curve is, and it's really fun to see that each event then develop these new skills, these new speeds, better boat handling.
You see it in the 49er as an example. No one does well in their first quad, and that's because they got to perfect everything. And these girls, no one's done more than a quad.
And there was no woman's skiff, unless you were at the Auckland Skiff Club on 12-foot skiffs. There was no woman's skiff in the world other than 29ers, and it's sort of a halfway boat, right?
Yeah. So they're all still improving. Every day counts.
Right on. Okay.
Oh,
wait, you got one more here?
One more, quickly. Ida Nielsen and Olsen. And they have won 3 out of the 4 European Championships. They narrowly missed out on Danish selection. Happy for their teammates, but they were the number 1 team really in the last quad and didn't even make it to the games. Danish squad was really strong. They've been training hard for a month, and they've run 3 out of 4 European
and
championships.
again,
so
close by, close waters here. Every one
similar
of
waters
these people has
are
done Kiel week. Every one of these low, these Scandinavians has done a few Kiel weeks, right?
Okay. Now on to Nacra. Fernando Echevarri and Tara Pacheco. So Fernando's the 2008 gold medalist in Tornado, and
did a few before that as well.
and more.
5 world championships.
And, Tara, excellent resume, and they've been winning everything so far this year in the Seaboard. This is obviously the first regatta with the full foiling. So we can only assume it's going to transition well. We don't know for sure, but why wouldn't we put them on the list? They've been great team, and
again, I like it. Not a young guy.
Yeah, there's a little gray up there. Yeah.
And now
here's a young team. This is Lynn and Sipi from Denmark. They missed out on the games last time, but have been training pretty hard this winter, and they were 8th at the last Worlds. Big Danish squad battle. Faced some match racing and some tough situations, but
another
see how they're feeling.
And another female driving the team.
Yeah, so Lynn steers, which is obviously your option in the Nacra. It has to be a mixed team, but either can do any job. So Lynn's one of the girls who steers.
And typically we've seen the men helmed boats sort of doing better, but that seems to be changing as well. And Gemma, silver medalist was she in Rio?
4th, yeah.
Sorry, 4th, driving as well. So I think the jury's still out. You know, there's not one.
But the boats were only released 2 weeks ago, so we'll see what happens.
We'll see, and we'll talk. Tomorrow we're going to talk all about foiling. But who are we looking at here?
And
we got Austrian.
Yeah, Thomas Sajak and his new crew, Barbara Matz.
And Tom's another vet of the Tornado, if I remember right.
Sure, he's done a ton of sailing. He still does a ton of sailing. GC32, Marstrom's, all the rest, and they won the bronze. Oh, he won the bronze medal with a different teammate in Rio. Yeah. But he hasn't done a ton yet in this boat. None of them have, but we'll see how they fare this week.
All right. There are the picks, and we're going to bring you a short chat with our old friend Kim Andersen, the new president of World Sailing. Ben, thank you for the picks.
Thanks, Alan.
Ben's going to be running the social media all week, so if you have questions, comments, reach out Nacra 17 on Facebook or 49er Sailing on Facebook. And Mr. President, welcome,
hello,
sir. I haven't gotten to see you since you won your all-powerful post. You got your nice little shirt on here, your World Sailing shoes. You look great.
Want the shoes as well?
Pull in here. I think you're good. Is he good?
Okay.
All right. So Kim, I know you're headed back here probably today or tomorrow, but I got a chance to be out on the water with you yesterday watching these foiling Nacras. You were an advocate for this class from the very beginning, right? I mean, that's my understanding. Cats got out of the Olympics, and from then on, you've been an advocate. Then you were head of the technical committee at World Sailing and helped to bring this in. How does it feel to see these foiling boats on the water now and to see where they're going? How does that feel for you?
Yeah, I think it's great to see the cats out there, because when they lost out at the Olympics, I was actually advocating for getting them back in, because I think there's so much more to catamaran sailing than what we have had in the past. And in the past, that was when I was sailing. But then you can see, ever since the last 10 years, where has catamaran sailing gone? You see it everywhere, and then you also see the foils coming and things like that. So I think for World Sailing to make the decision to take them back in was a major positive. And then we had some issues with the Nacra for many years concerning construction, blah, blah, blah. Like many other classes, when they enter the Olympics, we have a lot of issues. And this, what you're seeing out here, is actually what we call the Mark II. This is trying to make a solid construction, which is also aspiring to the loads that the sailors are actually saying. We might have to be fair to the producer as well, that when we give tools to Olympic sailors, they won't survive the first quad, because they are doing everything what is possible to get the last grain of speed out to be competitive. And this is you can say a solid construction. I think what we're seeing out here from the Nacra. And now, of course, it's then exciting to see how the crews are going to adapt to the foilings. You know, we saw some great foiling downwind yesterday. A little disappointing going upwind. Yeah. We saw some of the Nacras were trying maybe to gain a little more speed to try and get up, but everybody was still very much pointing.
The settings.
So I think they are super sailors, all of them. They know what they're doing, but of course they're in a transition. So I'm really more excited to see them in 1 month's time, 2 months' time, to see the progress.
It's interesting too to hear, from the race committee this morning talking about the differences in times. Already the foiling Nacras now are sailing at about as fast around the course as the 49ers, and that's with no development really at all yet. So, okay. I mean, they certainly are going to be the fastest Olympic boats out there, and that doesn't necessarily matter. But it's just interesting to see. This is the most modern boat. It probably should be the fastest.
I think the interesting part is this to having, of course, a multi-hull boat in our Olympic system, and then to have a mixed team. That is, I think, the most exciting part. Now to see that they're having a boat where also going up to the last Olympic in Rio, that the maneuverability is much better than the earlier cats, and the techniques is so important. Now to see, we saw actually one jibe nearly finishing yesterday on the foils, from jibe to jibe, staying on the foils, and just you know the America's Cup. They within the last 6 months up to the Cup, how much they progressed, and then I'm really looking forward to seeing these guys handling these boats.
There's been a lot more than one foiling jibe in Garda. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. But we saw actually also a little bit American Cup style, where you go out of the water and into the water and out of the water, and you cannot decide if you want to tip forward. We saw that yesterday as well. Yeah. So that's probably what you call a foiling stunt.
It's very exciting.
But it's very exciting.
Now, have you gotten out on a boat yet?
No, I have actually.
I know you're desperate to go out and foil on one of
but
these
I haven't. I've talked to Alan from the Danish team to go out.
Alan Norgard.
Yes, but that is. I think he wants to race before I go out and damage his boat. That's why I'm not doing it before the race.
So you're coming back on Saturday and you're going to sail the boat.
No, after they're going from here to Denmark to make the trial for Aarhus, the test event. And then maybe after that we'll have an arrangement. I have actually a board member, the World Sailing has a board member participating out here, Jan from the Athletics Commission.
In the 49er?
Yeah, in the 49er, but he wrote me a very silly mail where he says, I'm now coming to Kiel to participate, and didn't say what. So I was sure he was beating me to test
the Nacra.
And then he writes me a mail yesterday, sorry, just a joke, I'm in the 49er.
So you guys are going to be able to still work together, you're not going to be too angry.
Exactly.
That's really cool, Kim. Honestly, it's fun to see that you taking such an interest in this. You know that the president of such an important body for sailing shows up and just hanging out because you like it.
Yeah, but I also think that seeing the boats out here, they are the youngest one in the Olympic sport, and I think when you talked a lot before about also the FX coming in, I think seeing the mix of men and women is very important for our sport. And I think just seeing when you're walking around here how important it is that we have both genders represented, I think that is a major issue pushing our sport forward. If we have a big minus of having much too many men compared to women, you can say. And I think if you're looking at the competitive environment amongst sport and amongst attracting youth, this is really very important. So this is also, you can say, Nacra, where everything comes together with high technology, high speed, and the mix. It's a great class for the Olympics, and it's a great class for world sailing. So I'm really excited to see it out there.
Well, I think being here for these classes too, I think we all owe you and the rest of the World Sailing Board a thanks for allowing these guys to sort of do their own thing and figure out what works best for these boats that are quite different from the other boats at the Olympics. We're calling it the super fleet at the moment, but I don't know, it's pretty cool to have all the fastest boats together,
I think you can say every Olympic class, that is the super sailors. Then the equipment is actually...
That's a very good political answer.
That is actually the equipment that is second tier. And I also think it proves the standard of our Olympic sailor when we see one sailor winning an Olympic gold medal, and then 9 months later he's winning the America's Cup. So,
I think so too.
That's the interesting part.
Grant Dalton at the end of the America's Cup in the press conference in Bermuda, 3-4 weeks ago, whatever it was, he said something about that the Cup should work with World Sailing and the Olympics and the Volvo and all these things and try and sort of do a better job of creating a system that allows these kind of things to happen, that allows sort of these kind of different events to work together. Do you see that as something that can happen?
That's actually what we are trying to get close to Grant and his team to say, okay, how can we help there? I think concerning the equipment and the format they want to do and everything else, they are definitely the specialist and they should decide. Sure. But I think to create, you can say, a structure where our sailors can swap from Olympic sailing to America's Cup, to Volvo Ocean, etc., to extreme sports, extreme racing. All these things, if we can mix that for the sailors to have a possibility to do what they love the most, and even to commercialize it to a high level, that's what we should be aiming at in order to attract even more sailors.
Well, we're all going to do our best. And
Thank you.
Do you have your picks for this week? Who's going to be the European champion in the...
I think my best picks, then I go back to the equipment. I'm happy if I'm getting a positive feedback on the new equipment introduced, because I think that is so important now for the 3.5 years or even less going to the Olympics, for everybody to have a very fair chance to prepare. And this is what we are trying to work with. So my pick for this week is that we are seeing some close racing, some fair racing, and then to have a good feedback on the new equipment introduced.
All right, well, thank you so much for dropping by. Thank you for doing a great job at World Sailing. And folks, that's going to wrap up our morning show here at day one of the 2017 Nacra 17 49er and 49er FX European Championship. It's going to be a very exciting week. All week we're going to have pictures, interviews, plenty of social media going out on Facebook, right on 49er or Nacra 17 Sailing on Facebook. And then we're going to have 3 days at the end of this thing of fully live coverage. I think 3 or 4 hours each day for all the gold medal fleet Gold Fleet Racing, and the final stadium sailing. It's going to be extremely exciting. I guarantee it. Please check back with us and make sure to send us a message. If you've got any questions about sailing in these boats or what you can see or how to see it, if you're interested in sponsorship, if you want to buy some of this great Adidas gear or some of these awesome Spinnaker watches that we're going to show you later, check in on Facebook and let us know. We'll get back to you right away. And if you like what we're doing, share and post a comment. We'll see you soon.